Hello everyone in the void, Phoebe Rizzo's back again, and told you I'd be back a little quicker, trying to get a few more of these out as I can. My work schedule's shifted up a bit, so not been able to update as regularly, so hopefully I can keep some more coming. And after the last one, I needed something better. But that left me with a decision paralysis of what to put in, because with that, I want to put something that I either was looking forward to or already have seen and knew was good. So, but a lot of movies I've seen enough times that I'm not always in the mood for. So, I went with one that I had seen years ago, remembered liking, but I couldn't remember a thing about it. Not one thing came to mind when I saw it, other than it's sitting in my already watched pile. So, I gave Deliver Us from Evil a go. And I will say, it has kind of a strong pedigree. I mean, the director of Sinister, which is one of my favorites, as well as the same director as The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which I also really enjoyed. And the blurb on here claims it's Exorcist meets Seven, which I can kind of see. I will say it does feel like a blending of those two, to some extent. And okay, ended up I won't say it was great by any means, but it was passable. So, plot on this one is, how to best describe? They're mostly following around a rough and tumble cop duo as he's got kind of this radar which tunes him onto, like that little mental ping there, an instinct that guides him to cases where they tend to be a little more violent or need a little bit of extra consideration. So, following that, he winds up encountering a couple strange cases, which begin seeming to be oddly connected. First off is a domestic dispute with a woman and having been beaten by her husband. The other one with a woman, then, which shortly after, he gets called into a case at the zoo where a woman just tossed her baby into the lion pen before running off into the darkness. So then all the power went out. Following up with a case of people who are sure their house is haunted, only to find a body in their basement. And oddly enough, all these cases seem connected, as one mysterious figure keeps showing up between all of them, and most of them all seem to have served together in the military. Meanwhile, the priest is trying to get some answers because he's knows the woman who tossed her baby, and he's sure that something else is going on and that she's possessed. And then it goes kind of into a cop cat and mouse with them trying to hunt down the guy who seems to be almost spreading demonic incidents. Okay, so pros and cons. First, we'll go into some of the pros. The acting is pretty good. Eric Bana does a great job as Ralph Sarchi, and Edgar Ramirez plays the priest. Also does a good job, and I don't know who off the top of my head was playing his partner, Joel McHale, I think maybe, but they all have a really good, and the possessed woman does a very good job also. Um, our main character's wife has wife and kid. Both are then so handling his issues of him growing more distant from his wife. It's the old cop movie cliches, but they handle it pretty well. And his daughter isn't an obnoxious kid, which is a plus. Often movies will do that where the kid in question is either obnoxiously cute or just a terrible actor. She was fine. She was good. The effects are for the most part decent. There's some obvious CG things, particularly with some swarms of flies or this thing with some fish, but for the most part, all the gore effects are practically done, and some of them are out there. Particularly with how scarred up some of the possessed victims get, particularly the main one. He looks pretty messed up by the end of it, and some of the things you see are not common. Like a crucified cat actually completely cut open. It's graphic. Now, you don't actually see anything happen to the cat, it's just something they come across, so any animal lovers, yeah, there's a bit of a rough patch there, but it is just a split second. And overall, well, the pacing, for the most part, holds together pretty well. And there's some very effective scenes, particularly when the possession starts going after his daughter. And there's some general creepiness there. There's a lot of very effective scenes. Now the cons. First off, this movie starts a little rocky. For two different reasons. Well, first off, it just seems to be jumping around between a bunch of things that you don't know what's going on. All the cases are so not connected at first, and you're not sure who the main character is, because at first it starts by showing some a military thing, then it cuts to a random cop thing, before jumping to, like, something possession-looking, then to another, to a cop thing, then it cuts to the priest, going out for essentially a jog and getting a drink, so it just keeps jumping between a bunch of people, and you don't know who any of them are. Then shows our cop back at home with his wife. Before you really know what you should be following and paying attention to, it's rough at the beginning. It goes really quick between these scenes, because none of these scenes are very long, so it doesn't let you really establish it. Though, it is a good 2-hour movie, so after about a half hour, it gets decently established, and you're able to sink in and realize who you're going to be following, and it works pretty much from there on, but at first, a little rough. Another way, speaking of rough, in today's day and age, following some cops around feels a little different. Particularly, yes, the first person thing that you see them on is the wife beater, and he runs. So when the cops catch up, they do beat the hell out of him. And yes, the guy definitely did deserve something, but it plays differently in today's climate. It really does. So while it is good to see a wife beater get some comeuppance, seeing it from the law enforcement just wasn't working for me. Years ago, I might not have had a problem with that scene, but the realism of today's day and age kind of makes it not sit as right. Which leads to another problem I've had, is the main character. He's well acted, he is. But he's got problems. Yes, they're going for the whole dark, tortured, rough cop who's seen too much. But it kind of makes him an asshole. He's distant from his wife, he yells at his kid, he's beats the shit out of that suspect. He's mouths off to everyone, and he's hard to want to keep spending time with this character. I mean, as he's playing off the priest, and the priest is trying to get him to release, essentially let go of all the anger inside him. Yeah, he does have an arc, but it takes a long time for that arc to come to. In a 2-hour movie, if you're spending an hour and a half with him acting like that, it's a little hard. I mean, for the most part, it's still worth seeing despite that, but the main character's likability was lacking for a while. Complaint the next. The demon that's possessing the main victim. Does some cool demonic things. The effects he was doing, having on things was cool. The whole Doors soundtrack references that he somehow has going on, also interesting and neat. That's another thing. This movie has a lot of references to the Doors. A lot of soundtrack references. A lot of the characters a couple of the demonic related things are quoting it. It's interesting. I actually like that. But back to the point I made, the demon. Now, you never actually see a big CG demon pop out, so thankfully that's not the problem. They do just mostly go with the whole possessed guy thing. Cool. The demon's name is kind of what's bothering me. Because, you know, they do the whole traditional exorcism of demon, give me your name. And how they do the reveal, with only the one cop able to kind of sense and hear some of the psychic turbulence, that part worked. And the echoing way he heard it was cool. But the name itself, the demon has a stupid name. Its name is Jungler. One who jungles? It's like a play on juggler? It was hard to take seriously. Thankfully, that's like only in like the last 5-10 minutes of the film. But it was an issue. So, hearing a demonic voice say jungler, and then the priest yelling it back at him makes a very climactic scene, hard to take completely seriously. But those complaints aside, the movie overall was pretty well done. The exorcism itself was cool. A lot of the effects and back and forth between the demon and the main characters was working. Both the cop and the priest were playing off each other great during that. A lot of the horror scenes building to that worked. So I can't be too hard on it. It's not great, and it does have flaws, but it was pretty good. I can't give this one up to a 4, but because some of the flaws are glaring, like the demon name. So, but it's a solid 3. And it was one that I was glad to see again. So, yes, 3 MacGuffins, I think, is a good sit for this one. And, yeah. I'm not sure how many days are going to be before I can jump back into another one. Maybe I'll get one in tomorrow. Maybe it'll be another week. Hard to say. But I hope to have something soon. Take care, everybody.